How many of you watched that debate last night? We had a real clear winner there, someone who really cares about the American dream, someone that's positive, someone that wants to fight for our future, fight Washington's special interests. And who is that? Marco Rubio. You know, Senator Rubio has done a great job as a senator, and I want to keep making sure that we help him in these next few days. He is going to be our next president. There is a real leader in this race that's talking about positive change, that's talking about restoring the American dream. Who is that leader? My dad once said, a politician thinks of the next election. A statesman thinks of the next generation. Those words are so representative of the fabric of Senator Marco Rubio. And that's why today I'm endorsing Marco Rubio for president, and I'm asking every one of you to work so hard in the next few weeks to elect this man the next president of the United States of America. So are you ready to join me? I'd like to introduce to you our next president of this great United States of America, Senator Marco Rubio. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really glad I'm honored you be here at 8 o'clock. What time is it? 8:15? We just finished that debate. It was literally 8 hours ago. So it's great to be with you guys. I'm really excited to be here with all of you. Thank you for your enthusiasm. A couple points. When they lead these chants of Marco, I always cringe because I think the next thing that's coming is polo. All right? All right, number two, you want to show enthusiasm. You want to prove that someone's enthusiastic and fired up about a campaign. This gentleman here, look at his face. Look at that. You didn't do that last night. All right, this guy got up at 5 in the morning to do that. That's excellent, man. Thank you. And that's fantastic. And I want to thank all of you for being here. This election is so important. And I said it last night in that debate. When I started with the statement was, you know, this is the greatest country in the history of the world. It is. There's never been a country like this in all of human history. You know why I know that? Because I was raised by people that grew up somewhere else. And when you're raised by people that know what life is like in other countries, they know how special America is. And it was special because it was founded on a very powerful principle, which is the idea that your rights don't come from the government. Your rights come from God. And that the job of government is to protect your rights, not to decide them. That makes us different from the rest of the world. Every other country thinks your rights are what your leaders allow you to have. But we believe our rights come from our Creator. That's what led to free enterprise. That's what led to free enterprise, because we believe everyone should have the right to go as far as their work and their talent will take them. That's what led to individual liberty, which made us the freest people in the world. That's what led to the American miracle. The problem we have is that now it doesn't feel that way anymore. For millions of people across this country, they feel, as I do and you do, that we're being left behind, that this country is being fundamentally altered and changed in a way that robs us of that made us special. And why is the question? Well, when it comes to politics, I can tell you why. It's because in 2008, a person was elected president who doesn't view America the same way. He does not believe in free enterprise. I don't care how often he says it. He uses the right words because, you know, he's not going to say, I think government should dominate the economy, because he won't win an election. I mean, Bernie Sanders at least admits he's a socialist when he talks about the role of government. I'm saying Barack Obama just doesn't believe in free enterprise the way you and I do. He doesn't go as far as Bernie Sanders, but he comes real close. And so do their policies about government dominating our economy. And that's why you see them undermine the free enterprise system with taxes and regulations. And by the way, trying to take over our schools through Common Core. This is a president that views the Constitution very differently than you and I do. For example, the Second Amendment. If he could ignore it, he would. If he could change it, he would. Remember when he ran for president, he said, oh, this is country, the people with traditional values, they're bitter people that are clinging to their guns and to their religion. This is why he does, he conspires with his attorney general to undermine the Second Amendment. As I said last night, the Second Amendment is not a suggestion. It is not like a recommendation. It is a constitutional right to bear arms. And this president views America as an arrogant global power. as a country that needed to be cut down to size. Go back and see the things he said. I don't care about the State of the Union the other night. Go back and read the things he has said since he started running for president. He views America as an arrogant global power that needed to be cut down to size. That was very clear in 2008 and again in 2012 when he ran. And that's how you get the foreign policy that we have. A foreign policy where we betray our allies. Okay? Israel feels betrayed. Okay? Jordan, do you understand that in the Middle East, Jordan wants to bomb ISIS? The king said this the other day on CNN. He had told us that previously in a meeting we had with him. They see the convoys, the ISIS convoys, and they want to bomb them. They want to hit them. And the coalition won't let them. You know who the coalition is headed by? Barack Obama. No, don't bomb them because we don't know who's driving those trucks. We do. ISIS. Okay? They feel betrayed. And then our adversaries feel emboldened. Do you think that Iran, a third-rate power, a third-rate government, would have the boldness to capture American sailors and do what they did to them? Put them on their knees, hands on your head, videotape them, make them apologize, make the young lady that was one of the sailors wear the headscarf, humiliate them, run it in the press in Iran. You know why they do it? Because they know they can. Because you have a president that just cut a deal with them. A president and John Kerry that's thanking them and saying, oh, well, the deal we did with them is what led to better relations. This is grotesque. This is grotesque. But it leads to this sort of aggressiveness. This is why they fire rockets right by our ships. And then you got a president that on 10 separate occasions has apologized for America. Apologized for the United States on 10 separate occasions for being arrogant, for telling people what to do, for X, Y, and Z. This is absurd. This is why people feel the way they do right now. And that's why this election is so important. That's why I'm so passionate about this election. And that's why it's so critical, number one, that Hillary Clinton not win. I know. Yeah, that's how I feel. Hillary Clinton wins. The next 4 years are not just going to be as bad as the last 7. They're going to be worse. They're going to be worse. Because the longer we keep doing this, the more damage it will do. 2016 is a turning point for this country. If we don't get this election right, we may not be able to undo some of this damage. By the way, as I said last night, I believe this. I've said this before. It's not new. She cannot be commander-in-chief. She's disqualified from being commander-in-chief. She doesn't know how to handle classified information. She doesn't. She wants the convenience of having it on her BlackBerry, so she tells people, oh, erase that it says classified. It's still classified. And she has to have known that now that's vulnerable to every spy agency in the world. But she did it anyway because she thinks she's above the law. But here's what's worse. Okay? She knew that those 4 Americans in Benghazi died as a result of a coordinated terrorist attack. We know she knew because she told that to foreign leaders, because she told that to her family members. But then she's telling the families of those victims, oh, this was because of a weird video and it fired them up. This was a spontaneous thing. Well, no, it wasn't. Anyone who lies to the families of those victims is disqualified from being commander-in-chief of the United States. But that's why, but by the way, we can't just elect any Republican. Okay, now I don't like to attack fellow Republicans. I don't, and I like every single one of them. None of them is a socialist. As I said last night, none of them is under FBI investigation. I don't want to do anything that makes life easier for Hillary Clinton to win. But I do think there are differences. And those are important because the damage Barack Obama has done is so extensive that our next nominee cannot be someone that supports his agenda or any piece of it that is damaging to this country. And so we do point those out. You know, one of the things the president's going to do is nominate Supreme Court justices. This is maybe as many as 4. Okay, and we need to appoint Supreme Court justices that understand that the Constitution is not a living and breathing document. It is supposed to be interpreted and applied as originally intended. And so that's why last night, it's one of the parts of the debate, Governor Christie and I got into something over some differences we have of opinion. One of them was about justices. And I said he supported Sonia Sotomayor, who was one of the most liberal justices on the Supreme Court, if not the most liberal. So you take Scalia, she's the opposite of Scalia. You take Clarence Thomas, she's the total opposite. Because he supported her nomination. He denies it. So basically what he's saying is that I'm not telling the truth. Let me tell you, I have what he said, and I'll read it. And you tell me what you think, whether he supported her or not. Quote, this is a quote, Politicker, New Jersey, on the July 17th, 2009. This is a quote. I support her appointment to the Supreme Court and urge the Senate to keep politics out of the process and confirm her nomination. This is a historic moment, and her inspiring success story should not only make the Latino community proud, but all Americans, end quote. Sounds like support. Keep politics out of the process? These people are all politics. These liberal justices that get appointed, they already made up their mind what they want the outcome to be. They're just trying to figure out how to manipulate the Constitution to be able to support that. Let me be very clear and very blunt. When I am President of the United States, we are not appointing justices like that to the Supreme Court. When I am president, the people I am appointing to all the courts, the Supreme Court and the lower courts and the federal level, are going to be people that understand that the Constitution, as originally intended, that is how you are supposed to apply it. And that means defending and supporting all of the amendments, the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, all of our liberties that are protected by the Constitution. My justices will protect them, not undermine them, not manipulate them, and not ignore them. We have a lot of work to do. On my first day in office, the first thing I'll do is take the oath. Put my hand on the Bible, my right hand in the air. I'm going to swear to protect, defend, and uphold the Constitution. Unlike Barack Obama, I'm going to actually mean it. And then I'm going to go over to the Oval Office. Before the parties, before the gala, before everything, I want to go right to the Oval Office, because I am going to go to my desk and I'm going to sit down. Maybe I won't even sit. Maybe it's one of those standing desks that people use to... No, I'm going to sit. I'm going to sit. And I'm going to sit at that desk, and I'm going to take out the presidential pen. Maybe Barack Obama leaves it with his phone right there. But I'm going to take the presidential pen, and I am going to reverse and repeal every single one of his unconstitutional executive orders. Every single one of them. So all these crazy EPA rules are gone on day number one. All these things he's doing to undermine the Second Amendment are gone on day one. And then I'm going to tell every federal agency, whatever work you're doing on Common Core to force it and ram it down the throats of our school system, it stops. No more Common Core. And then, on my first day, before I go to any of these other things, I am going to cancel this ridiculous deal with the Ayatollah of Iran. We have other things to do, but you have stuff to do too. I'm asking you to do something. The president can't do what I'm about to ask you to do, and shouldn't. The framers of our Constitution were geniuses, literally geniuses, and we're so blessed that they all happened to live at the same place at the same time. And they could envision what would happen, and here's what they did. They created a system under Article 5 of the Constitution that gives you the power to get control of the federal government if it gets out of control. And that process is called a Convention of States. It's not a runaway Convention of States, right? The opponents of this will say, oh, you call a Convention of States, they're going to get rid of the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. No, they're not. They can only deal with whatever you allow them to deal with. So there's an effort now by citizens. You should go online and check it out. conventionofstates.org, I think it is. And it's very limited. All it allows the convention to do is to pass, or at least seek the ratification of, new amendments to the Constitution that limit the size of the federal government. What are they in specific? A balanced budget amendment, term limits on the judiciary, and term limits on Congress. On my first day in office, and every day in office, I will do everything I can as president to build support for a Convention of States so we can finally get a balanced budget amendment and we can finally get term limits. And we're going to rebuild our economy. And the way to do it is to re-embrace free enterprise. Barack Obama also doesn't believe in free enterprise. Not the way I do, not the way you do. He wants us to be more like these other economies around the world. I have a very simple suggestion. If you like all these other economies and all these other countries around the world, move there. When was the last time you read about a boatload of American refugees arriving on the shores of another country? Move. We want to be America. We want to be the place where you can start a business out of the spare bedroom of your home. We want to be the place where someone says, you know what? I can do this better than my boss. I'm going to quit my job, max out my credit card, and start a new business. I'm going to risk it all because I believe in my dream. And it works. And now people get hired. And that's why we need to do things like tax reform. And we have differences of opinion on taxes in this campaign. I pointed to one of them. You know, there's one of the candidates running, Ted Cruz, has this thing called a value-added tax, which you find in Europe. It's a really bad idea. That's why Reagan hated it. We're not doing a value-added tax when I'm president. Other people that are running for president support an internet sales tax. I have always been against the internet sales tax. Do you know what a disaster that would be? So you live in a state with no sales tax, okay? All right. Let's say you're in business now, and you don't collect sales tax because you don't have one. But suddenly you sold something online to someone who lives in New Jersey. And now at the end of now you got to collect the sales tax for New Jersey. Do you know how many jurisdictions in America have sales taxes? 10,000. So you know what that means? You now have to go out and figure out a way to collect the sales tax of potentially 10,000 jurisdictions all across the country. But it gets better. All of these people have revenue agencies who at the end of the year have the power of government to audit you, to make sure that you're collecting the money that you're supposed to be collecting for them. Who do you think they're going to target first? The people that can vote against them, or someone halfway across the country that can't vote against them and can't hire a lobbyist to go to the Capitol and complain? They are going to target the out-of-state businesses. California, you sell something to someone in California, they're going to come after you. They're going to audit you to make sure you collected every single penny of the sales tax you owe them. What an incredible burden. The whole thing is a fraud. All the big companies already collect sales tax online. If they have a store, a physical presence in the state, they already do it. But what about the small businesses that are going to get crushed by it? We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. There will be no internet sales tax at a federal level when I'm president of the United States. And Obamacare. I know. By the way, everybody running for president as a Republican is against Obamacare. I'm the only one that's ever done anything about it. No, not a 23-hour speech, okay? Not a blizzard of press releases. Here's what I did. In 2009, they created a bailout. I know this is shocking to you that big companies go to Washington and create a carve-out, but they did, a bailout fund. And they told Obama, we, the big insurance companies, will support Obamacare if you create a bailout fund for us. So they did. And guess who pays for the bailout fund? You do. So in 2014, I led the effort, and we wiped out the bailout fund. We wiped it out. And we saved the taxpayers $2 billion. And all these newspapers around the country, all of them, the editorial boards, Marco Rubio just did something terrible. It's going to lead to the collapse of Obamacare. I hope so. I hope so. But whether it does or it doesn't, when I'm president, we're getting rid of Obamacare. We're getting rid of it once and for all. It will happen when I'm president. The other issue people talk about all the time, immigration. Listen, I understand this issue. My dad was an immigrant. My mother was an immigrant. My grandparents were immigrants. My wife's entire family are immigrants. I grew up in a community of immigrants. I still live in a community of immigrants. I understand this issue as better than anyone else running because I've lived it. I didn't watch a PBS special on it. I didn't read a book about it. I didn't read the congressional testimony on it. I have lived it. I know every aspect of it, the good, the bad, the ugly. I know the story of people that are here illegally, and it's wrong what they did, but their stories would break your heart. I know the story of people that are here legally, and their stories would outrage you. Outrage you. It's happening now in my community. You know, Cubans have the Cuban Adjustment Act. When they come from Cuba to the United States, if you arrive in the United States, you are immediately legal, unlike any other immigrant in the world. And the reason for that was a communist country, everyone's seeking, freedom and so forth. Automatic. And they qualify for all sorts of refugee benefits when you arrive. This is something that's been around for a long time. Here's what's happening now. What's happening now, especially after the Obama deal with Cuba, is people are coming from Cuba. They arrive. They immediately sign up for all of the benefits. And then you know what they do? They move back to Cuba. They move back to Cuba. And you know who's outraged about it? Cubans are outraged by it. They move back to Cuba. And they have a relative in Miami or somewhere in the U.S. that collects their benefits, sometimes takes a cut, and then sends the rest, wires the rest over to them. So you have people living in Cuba today that are collecting Social Security benefits, never worked a day in their life in the United States, and all sorts of benefits. And they're living over there. This is an outrage, guys. That's why I filed a bill this week that ends that once and for all. That ends it once and for all. So I understand this issue, and here's what I understand about it. Number one, it's not the same issue. Today, unlike ever before, you now have a radical jihadist group that knows our immigration system as well as we do, and they are manipulating it against us. You know what I mean by that? Here's what I mean, and I know this for a fact. Okay, I'm a member of the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee. That means every week I review the most sensitive intelligence information this government has. I'm not going to give away any secrets, but I'm going to tell you what I can tell you, that some of this has been reported in the media. ISIS is deliberately recruiting people that do not fit the typical profile. Like who? Doctors. They're looking for jihadists that are doctors to come to the U.S. on a visa as a doctor, as an engineer, as a student, even as a fiance. They're also looking for people that have waiver status, which means is they're citizens of a country that has a visa waiver agreement with the U.S. They're also, by the way, trying to work with trafficking networks. There are full-scale trafficking networks. The same people that run heroin across the border, that is a scourge on our communities, who are particularly targeting places like New Hampshire, by the way. This guy El Chapo that Sean Penn was out there having lunch with and hanging out with, these guys are specifically targeted. They know what they're doing. They specifically target states like New Hampshire to flood it with not just heroin, but the most powerful heroin ever produced. And that's how you get these overdose deaths and these horrible things that are happening across this country. Okay? Well, those same networks traffic people too. And they contacted these networks. They're trying to get people in that way. They're trying to get people in posing as refugees. We've never faced an organized effort such as this to infiltrate people into the United States posing as doctors and engineers and students and tourists or being snuck in across the southern border. That's why, first and foremost, this is not about hating anybody, okay? This is about being safe. When I am president of the United States, we're going to be governed by a very simple rule. If we don't know who you are, 100% for sure, and we don't know why you're coming, when I'm president, you're not getting into the United States of America. And on the other issues, we'll deal with the other issues. I don't support amnesty. We're not going to have amnesty. We're not. Okay? Sanctuary cities are going to lose their federal funding. Criminal aliens are going to be immediately deported. And we're going to enforce our immigration laws. We're going to secure the southern border, not just because of immigration, but because of terrorism. And we know what it takes to do that. It is not some great mystery. It takes political will, but we know what it takes to do it, and we will when I'm president. You need 20,000 new border agents. You need to finish 700 miles of fencing and walls. You need cameras and sensors on key sectors of the border. You need a mandatory e-verify system, so you can't get a job if you're not here legally. You need a biometric entry-exit tracking system, because 40 to 50% of the people in the country illegally are entering legally. They're coming on a tourist visa, 90 days, it expires, they stay. We don't know who they are. We literally don't know who they are or where they are. That's why you need the entry-exit tracking system. We know what it takes to do it. I've been pushing for that for 2.5, 3 years while in the Senate. We're going to do it when I'm president of the United States. Once and for all, we will secure our borders. And I want to wrap up with this. We're going to keep America safe, because national security is the most important thing the federal government does. Okay? The federal government is not supposed to regulate fantasy football. It wasn't designed to run our schools through Common Core. That's why we don't even need a Department of Education. It wasn't designed to do a bunch of the stuff it does. Here's the one thing it is supposed to do, and that is keep us safe from threats. We face threats. Okay? A lunatic in North Korea potentially has a hydrogen bomb now and has long-range rockets that could already hit the state of California potentially, most certainly Guam and Hawaii. Okay? The Chinese are building artificial islands in the most important shipping lane in the world. They're landing planes there. They're hacking our computers. They're undertaking the most rapid military buildup in history. Russia is more aggressive than ever. Their economy's collapsing, but they're pouring more money than ever into their military. Okay? Iran is about to get $100-something billion of sanctions relief, and they're getting friskier by the day. They have no problem now firing rockets 1,000 yards away from our ships. They have no problems now capturing our sailors and humiliating them or trying to humiliate them. They have no problem continuing their sponsorship of terrorism all over the world. And by the way, guys, You know what they're going to use that money for? Let me tell you what they're not going to use it for. They're not going to build roads and bridges. They're not going to set up charity organizations to feed the poor. They're not going to go around, they're not going to build schools for girls. What they're going to do with that money is they're going to build or buy a nuclear weapon. They can build it. They can buy it from the lunatic in North Korea. And they're going to continue to develop their long-range missiles. They're testing them every day. Every day. And then last but not least, we have this threat of ISIS. And that's why I'm so passionate about national security and rebuilding our military. Do you know what we're doing to our military now? Let me describe it to you. We are going to soon have, in less than 5 years, we will have the smallest army since the end of the Second World War. In less than a decade, we will have the smallest Navy in 100 years. And I know that some of the people that are involved in that say, oh, well, we don't need as many ships because our ships are more capable technologically than ever. It's true, they are. And that's great. I'm not telling you these ships aren't good ships. I'm telling you that no matter how technologically capable they are, they can't be in two places at once. And that's a problem we have. Because there are months out of the year where we don't even have an aircraft carrier group in the Pacific. I was one time in Japan. They said, oh, the aircraft carrier is not available till April because it's in service. And they're like, I said, well, that's a big problem, isn't it, with North Korea and the Chinese? They're like, no, those are the months they use for training. So we don't have to worry about having an aircraft carrier. And I'm like, well, what if they were to ever change that practice? What then? Because we don't have enough of them. And we are about to have the oldest and smallest Air Force in the history of this country. So all of these threats we're facing, we're about to have the oldest and smallest. And that's an Air Force in history. And that's why I get into these tussles with other candidates about national security. It's not because I hate them. This is really dangerous. Every time we have gutted our military, we've had to come back later and rebuild it. And you've got people running as Republicans in this race who have voted to spend even less than what we're spending now, who have voted for budgets that brag about how they cut defense spending. That's not going to happen. I said it last night. When I'm president, if Congress tries to cut defense spending anymore, I will veto that in a millisecond. Because that is not what's driving our debt. Military spending is not what's driving our debt. Our debt is being driven by runaway government spending on all sorts of programs. These anti-poverty programs. I believe in the safety net, but not as a way of life. Not as a way of life and not as a lifestyle. I think we should take the anti-poverty programs, give them over to the states and to the local communities, and let them design innovative programs that cure poverty. And you know what the cure to poverty is? A good paying job. And so, and we're going to save Social Security and Medicare. Look, I'm from Florida. A lot of people don't realize this. There are a lot of people on Social Security and Medicare in Florida. And my mother's one of them. I wouldn't be for anything that's bad for her. And the good news is we don't have to change. We don't have to disrupt her Medicare and Social Security or the Medicare and Social Security of anyone who's retired or about to retire. But the truth is it's not going to look the same for me. It won't. It either won't exist because it went bankrupt or we reformed it. And reform it means this. It means I'm going to have to retire at 68 instead of 67. If I've made a lot of money, like the people that just won the Powerball, right? Can you believe that? 3 people won it? I should have played. If you made a lot of money, your Social Security benefits aren't going to grow as fast as they grow for someone who made less money. Your Medicare could be the option of using your Medicare money to buy a private plan that you like better. That's how you deal with the debt, not cutting military spending. When I'm president, we're going to rebuild the military. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to have a real war on terror. Not what we have now, which is a war on terror based on speeches. A president that says, oh, ISIS, they're just a bunch of guys on the back of a pickup truck. No, they're not. They're not. They're much more than that. They are the people that conducted those attacks yesterday in Indonesia. They are the people that inspired someone in Philadelphia to shoot 3 rounds into a police car. And then the mayor of Philadelphia is denying it had anything to do with Islam or ISIS. Well, ask the guy who did it. He said it. I mean, it's a terrorist attack, and nobody talks about it. It's like we become numb to this stuff. These people are conducting attacks all over the world. They're growing in their capabilities. We're going to have a real war on terror, and it's not going to be a very complicated one to describe. Here's what it's going to look like. The most capable intelligence agencies in the world are going to tell us, here's where the terrorists are. And then the most capable military in the world is going to destroy them. And if we capture any of them alive, we're not going to give them a lawyer. They're not going to hear their Miranda rights. You're not going to be reading about them in a courtroom in Manhattan pleading their case or trying to get off on a technicality. If we capture them alive, they are going to be given a one-way ticket to Guantanamo. And in Guantanamo, we're going to feed them, we're going to house them, they're going to do whatever they want, but they're going to tell us everything they know about these threats that we're facing around the world. Everything they know. We will find it out. And we're going to take care of our veterans when I'm president. We're not doing that now. We're going to have a VA system where if you're not doing a good job, if you're doing a good job, and there are many people at the VA that are, we thank you. And those people will continue to work there and continue to do a good job. And if you're not, you will be fired, like you would anywhere else in the world. And the VA benefits are going to belong to the veteran, not to the government, which means when I'm president and you're a veteran and you're not happy at the VA or they're making you wait too long, you will be able to take your VA benefits to any hospital or any doctor that's ready to see you. So the Red Bull is wearing off, so let me just close with this. First of all, thank you. I'm grateful that you're here today and you've given us your support. Well, this is an incredibly humbling experience. In the end, what I am asking you to do is to entrust me with the most important political office in the country. And we're going to get government out of their regulations, out of their business too. And we're going to keep their families and their country safe as well. But this is an incredibly humbling experience. Because what we are facing now is no ordinary election. 2016 will go down in history as a turning point. And there are only two directions we can turn. The road we are on right now leaves us as a great nation in decline. That's hard for me to say because of everything this country's meant for me and the world. But that's what we are right now. That's the hard truth. We are a great nation in decline. And that's Barack Obama's fault. Both parties share some blame, by the way. This debt is bipartisan. But Barack Obama has left us with a great nation in decline. And if we elect Hillary Clinton, or we elect a Republican that's not really willing to reverse everything Obama's done because they don't want to take on the editorial boards, they don't want to get criticized, they want to look magnanimous, they want to be popular in the newsrooms around the country. If we elect a Republican like that, then guys, nothing's going to change because the damage is too extensive. This nation is in need of intense repair after the damage Barack Obama's done. We have another choice, and it's the reason why I'm running. And that is we can elect someone, number one, that believes that America is the greatest nation in the world and acts like it. Number two, that understands what it was and that made us great. And it's the principles of free enterprise and limited government and a strong national defense. And number three, who knows how to apply those principles to the unique challenges of the 21st century. And that's why I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for your vote because that is what I will do. I'm asking for your vote and I'm running for president because America owes me absolutely nothing. You may have heard me say this, and I say this all the time because I have to. I want my children to hear me say this. America doesn't owe us anything. Nothing. But we owe America everything. Because no matter how this election turns out, my kids are going to see what's happening, and they're going to watch these videos. And I want them to know what America has meant to us and to our family. I have a debt, we have a debt, meaning my family to America, we will never be able to fully repay. Because America literally changed our lives. I don't know what I would be doing right now if my parents had left Cuba and gone to somewhere else. I promise you I wouldn't be running for the highest office in the land. And I probably would not have been able to do much more than my parents did. There was nothing wrong with what they did. My father, my mother came here. They didn't know anyone. They barely spoke English at the time. My dad left school at 9 years of age because he had to. His mom died and he had to go work. My mom not long after that. So they were not well educated, formally anyways. They had no money, no political connections, and barely spoke the language. Many strikes against them. They happened to come to the one place on earth where that didn't matter. because they were willing to work hard and they were willing to persevere. And it wasn't easy. Those first few years here, they were discouraged. It was hard. My father struggled to find work. He would take work anywhere he could find it. My mother tells the story of one time my dad was not a big man, as you can probably tell by looking at me too, but I would have played in the NFL had it not been for my lack of size, speed, and talent, My father was not a big man, and she tells the story that one time he wanted to get a job at some sort of factory, and it involved some really heavy lifting and a real hot furnace. I don't know all the details. He just couldn't do it. Physically just couldn't do the work. And it hurt him. It bothered him because he felt that drive. I have to provide for my family. My mother built aluminum chairs at a factory. Almost lost her hand in an accident at one of those. This was hard work. They were discouraged. But they kept at it. And let me tell you what their life looked like less than 10 years after they came here with no money, no English, and no connections. They owned a home in a safe and stable neighborhood. Let me tell you what their life looked like 30 years later. They retired with dignity. Not rich, but with dignity, security. My dad kept working. He couldn't stop working. He was a crossing guard. He rose to be the supervisor of the crossing guards. He's an ambitious guy. I don't know where I got it from, but that's a... My mother ended up, her last job was a stock clerk at Kmart. But they retired with dignity and security. And let me tell you the most important thing that happened to them. They lived to see all 4 of their children. My mom is still alive. My dad passed in 2010. But they lived to see all 4 of their children have the chance to do all the things they never could. This is the purpose of their life. I'm sure when they were young, I know when they were young they had big dreams. Young people have big dreams. They became impossible for them. And so the new purpose of their life became to give their kids the chance to do anything they wanted. They couldn't have done that in any other country but here. This is the debt I have. This is the debt I want to repay back, at least a part of it. And you know how? By ensuring that America remains that kind of country. By ensuring that we are still a place where people can do for their children, not just what my parents did for me, but also what your parents did for you, or what you're doing for your children now. What makes us great is not that we have rich people. Every country has rich people. We celebrate wealth and success. We have 40% of the world's millionaires, or we're 5% of the world's population. Incredible achievement. But what makes us special is not that. What makes us special are the millions of people that even as I speak are on their way to work. And they're going to work hard today. And they're not going to make a tremendous amount of money. But they're going to clean those hotel rooms, and they're going to park cars, and they're going to mow lawns. They're going to do whatever they need to do, not just to be able to feed their children tonight, because they want their children to be able to do all the things they never could. Because they want all the opportunities they once wanted for themselves to be possible for their kids. You know how rare that is in human history? That's what defines us, and that's what we're losing. And we're never going to get it back with big government. We're only going to get it back if we understand that's what makes us special and elect as president someone who every single day will fight to remain that kind of country, and I will. And that's why I'm asking for your vote in this election. I know you have a lot of good choices, but no one running for president feels more passionate about the American dream than I do. No one running for president has a better understanding of our national security threats or has shown better judgment than I have. And I'll tell you this. When I'm president of the United States, we will turn this country around. We will re-embrace the principles that made us special, and we are going to apply them to the challenges of our time. And we are not just going to save the American dream. We are going to expand it so that it reaches more people and changes more lives than ever before. And when we are done in this generation doing our part, here's what history will say of us. It will say that we lived in the early years of this new century in a dangerous and uncertain time, facing the damage done by a president that has taken us in the wrong direction. But then, like all the generations before us, this generation rose to the calling of their time. That we confronted. That like all the Americans that came before us, we confronted our challenges We embraced our opportunities, and because we did, the 21st century turned out to be not just as good as the 20th century, it turned out to even be better. Our children and our grandchildren grew up to be the freest and the most prosperous Americans that ever lived. And the 21st century was also known as a new American century. Thank you for having me, guys. God bless you.